thank you for joining us and agreeing to an interview. It's a pleasure to meet you. I thought we could just go straight into what's been going on the ground, specifically, most recently, Mullaitivu District Judge Saravanaraja fled the island. In his resignation letter, he stated that it was due to threats to his life. And obviously, there's been protests across the north and east as a result of that, condemning the fact that he was threatened and having to face pressure from the Attorney General and Sri Lanka. But in the recent, I think it was just this week, that the CID, following their investigation, they found that there were no threats to life, and that these claims are not substantiated. Are you surprised that they weren't able to substantiate these claims?
Not at all, and I don't think anybody else was either. And I think what's important about this Saran Raja's incident is that only for the first time that it's actually come out officially. I mean, there have been judges being pressured previously. We all know that, but obviously for various reasons, for security reasons, as he has admitted this time, they did the opposite. They didn't bring it out. They probably just succumbed, or they left the profession without stating the actual reason why. The quite apart from the threats, which generally is there, uh, and if people really want to pick up on it, obviously they can. I think what's more important was the revelation that the Attorney General um, summoned him and directly put pressure, because I think that goes to the very root of what Prince Zaid, the former High Commissioner, stated in his report when he suggested that member countries should look at other jurisdictions like the ICC and universal jurisdiction, because his reasoning for the complete rejection of a domestic accountability mechanism was because the whole Sri Lankan administrative system, because of the ethnic conflict, has been so corrupted on ethnic lines that you can't possibly expect justice. And the fact that the notions of good governance, the notion of rule of law, all of these go out the window when the Attorney General can summon a judge. I think is just it encapsulates the argument for an international um, criminal accountability mechanism brilliantly.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that Sri Lanka will try and cover it up. I don't think anyone who's serious, um, about these issues give any weight at all to what the CID has said. Um, the threats and the fact that the person who's most prominently has made the threat is actually the chairman of the sectoral oversight committee on national security, I think says it all. So no, I think he's quite a remarkable judge, despite the humiliation, despite the sort of pressures that were brought upon him. For him to have the sort of strength of character to state it on paper, I think has done an immense. It's an immense contribution, genuinely. And this is not on ethnic lines. If you are serious about wanting to reform the state in a way that is inclusive and plural, and also accountable to its citizens, then I think he's done a remarkable thing towards that. And anybody, regardless of their ethnicity, should recognize it for what it actually is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Just on that, when you mentioned that international accountability is what we need because Sri Lanka is not capable of investigating anything impartially, what are your thoughts on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that Sri Lanka want to set up based on the South African model? And do you think they'll be able to sway the international community with the invention of this?
No, I think it's a joke. The secretary to the president invited all of the sort of Colombo-based civil society actors, organizations, and activists, um, and had a pretty lengthy meeting
Mm.
um, with regards to how the government proposed to handle reconciliation and accountability. And basically, bluntly, mm, stated that their efforts towards creation of a TRC is to ensure that criminal accountability goes out permanently. So it's quite clear that the intention is to establish a so-called truth and reconciliation mechanism as an alternative
Mm.
to accountability. It is not a complementary thing. So there is no incentive for the truth to come out anyway, because it's a whitewash. So I think the the Tamil actors who have been quite serious about accountability will reject it outright. I think those political actors who have been sort of pandering to this facade of giving a domestic mechanism a chance and all of that, I think they will come under immense pressure from the Tamil people itself
Mm-hmm.
this time around. Um, the the reason why this domestic mechanism thing was given somewhat of a chance in 2015 was because I think the Tamil people didn't they were confused because some of their elected members tried to make out that Ranil Wickremesinghe was different to the others. But I think today President Wickremesinghe has shown what his true colors are. So I don't think any Tamil, right-thinking Tamil, will take the TRC seriously. And I think if there is someone who tries to sort of give it some sort of recognition,
Mm-hmm.
I think they will suffer the consequences of that act. Um, so, if the Tamil parties and if the Tamil public, which means the victims, reject it, then that's the end of it. If the international community want to still, because the government is sort of forcing it on, choose to sort of try and give it some sort of recognition, well, that's their business.
Mm.
The OMP has not had any traction with the victims. It's utter waste of time. And the government also realizes it. Out of a cadre officially that has been allocated of 220 odd, only 28 have been appointed. It shows how serious they are about the OMP anyway. So it'll be the same thing all over again.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I mean, anybody who's serious will not engage with it. I mean, we as a party, we had a meeting with the South African Swiss, a joint meeting with the South African Swiss and the Japanese missions in Colombo. They have been meeting other stakeholders on possible um, accountability and reconciliation process. The question of a TRC came up, and we made it very clear that our position is that we will reject it.
Just more on accountability. We've seen multiple resolutions passed at the UN Human Rights Council, with the international community sort of giving Sri Lanka longer time periods to implement the commitments that they're supposed to carry out, like repealing the PTA. What are your thoughts on that? Because some Tamil actors, while they welcome what's happening at the UN, sometimes it can be seen that accountability is being stalled there. Do you think the UN process is meaningful? Do you think there should be further steps taken? And if you do, like, what would that be?
Well, we have no doubts that a UN process is something that we want. The question is what.
Mm.
The Human Rights Council has been an institution that we believe, our party believes, is not suitable for Sri Lanka. Because the council works on the basis that you have to have the consent and the consensus of the relevant state. um, so obviously Sri Lanka is a reluctant state. I mean, they've demonstrated it over 15 years. Um, um, so then, if you look at even if you look at the UPR, the sort of 8 suggestions that they rejected had to do with the resolution, directly from the resolution. So it's quite clear that those resolutions are not going to be taken seriously by the government, and they will, if at all, only try and sort of do things to create some scenario for a box ticking exercise, and to have sort of like-minded states moving to take off the pressure on Sri Lanka. And so our view is quite similar to what the two high commissioners, Navi Pillai and after that Prince Zaid, have been saying, and that is that member countries must look at taking Sri Lanka elsewhere, and think beyond the Human Rights Council. Our party's view is that if it's a UN mechanism that we're looking at, then it has to be the ICC. We have been saying that from 2012 onwards. We have been consistently saying that the ICC investigation doesn't necessarily have to go through the Security Council, that there are other venues, other paths to have an investigation to happen. I think Myanmar, Afghanistan, in the future, possibly Syria, these are all examples where countries, without going to the Security Council, where countries who are non-signatories to the Rome Statute are being investigated. So there is plenty of precedence. I think before the current prosecutor, who's English, was there, the previous chief prosecutor, I think, has created a record number of investigations that the ICC has commenced on countries who are not members to the ICC. And they have done it by giving a very meaningful interpretation of Article 15 of the Rome Statute, where it creates the possibility of the ICC gaining jurisdiction where a crime crosses the border of a non-member state, where victims, for example, cross over because of actions of that state or actors within that state. They cross over to a member state. So the crime is considered to be trans-border, and if the victims end up and the crime ends up in a member state, then the ICC has ruled that they have jurisdiction. And in the case of Myanmar, they approached the ICC. So the chief prosecutor brought in the case before the pretrial bench on the basis that it was a crime of forcible eviction. But the pretrial bench basically said, well, yes, but you can look into all the crimes, because obviously they are being evicted. That means crimes are being committed in Myanmar, that is forcing them to leave, right? So what the bench said was that you can look at all the crimes within Article 5 of the Rome Statute, which is genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. So, in my view, you can't possibly get a more wider interpretation of how the ICC can, in fact, gain jurisdiction over non-member states. So, our view is that within the UN structure, it is the ICC that can actually do something. Of course, if you're not going to go into the ICC and you still want the UN involved, then it has to be a special ad hoc tribunal that is established. But my understanding is that since the ICC was created, and started functioning. Ad hoc tribunals have not come into being. But so anyway, I mean, the point is that we know that the Human Rights Council is not going to move. We know Sri Lanka is not going to voluntarily do things. So that's a dead end. All you can do there is to make a bit of noise, naming and shaming, and that's it. The victims are not going to get what they want through the council. So our view is that we have to force ourselves to create narratives, to put pressure, to take accountability elsewhere. And so whenever we meet foreign dignitaries, our position is that they have to, in principle, take that decision. As far as the diaspora and as far as the Tamil people back home are concerned, you have to create a scenario where you put pressure. You have to mobilize in a way that the question of accountability doesn't go away, and it becomes a live issue that becomes that much easier to sort of get these countries to take up. So we certainly as a organization have been canvassing for that, and I think the um, amongst the diaspora there is already there is a fairly significant mobilization on this. But my view is that it's become sharper. I think a significant section of the youth in the diaspora are becoming much more focused. That is not just the legal people who are active on the legal side. I think political awareness about what's actually happening even now, 15 years after the war, I think makes a lot of people realize that if you don't pursue accountability and have something, then non-recurrence is not going to be a thing of something that you can be assured of.
Thank you.